Hey, what's up, guys? We're going to be watching some more bare knuckle MMA, and it's exactly what it looks like. We got Jason Knight versus Crazy Horse Charles Bennet. If you haven't watched Charles Bennet fight before, then you probably don't watch a lot of local MMA, but he's been all over the place in terms of where he's fought, who he's fought for, and how insane he really is. But yeah, we watched a little bit of bare knuckle last week. Let's do it again. It's kind of fun to watch. A little weird, a little quirky. Yeah, let's do it again. Have not seen this fight before. It's a first for me. I like Jason Knight, though. In general, I like his style. He's a good MMA fighter. Charles Bennet, though, he's just a maniac. And I think that's kind of, he lives and dies on being a maniac. Oh, he got clipped by a check hook on the way in. Bennet looks way too relaxed, but I don't think he really gives a shit about losing. So he just wants to stand in there and hopefully fight. Good wrestling. Actually, a beautiful takedown, which he abandons for no good reason. He's a really good check hook with his right hand. Like, just as Knight stepping in, he's throwing that hook right over top of his lead hand. It's kind of sneaky looking. He already has Knight cut, too. Just with a one shot. Okay, kind of diving in. Immediately giving up his back by turning away when his opponent is over top of him. I think he was going to go for the just stand up strategy, which can work. Sometimes if someone's doing jiu-jitsu on you, just stand up and you might actually get out. But Jason Knight's no joke. He's a legit MMA fighter. He knows pretty much everything about the game when it comes to wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and striking. And he's a dog in there. He's got that dog in him. But yeah, again, nothing intelligent about the way that Crazy Horse is moving. He's kind of just flopping around and hoping for the best. Giving up his back completely. Got the body lock on. You're never going to break a body lock just by hanging a guy off of your back. Yeah, it's right underneath. He's just kind of doing a bulldog rear naked choke. Yeah, closes it. Bennett's making no attempt whatsoever to attack the top hand and just completely gave up that choke. No problem. This is what you're going to get with these super fights, where you're going to be taking guys at the end of their careers just because it's kind of fun and interesting and they got a name. They're not going to give you the best quality MMA. That's 100% sure. You give this maybe 10 years ago, before a lot of people knew about Charles Bennet and a lot of people knew about Jason Knight, I bet it would have been a banger fight. It would have been fun as hell to watch. But then when we see these fights, which honestly I'm kind of like about, like, I could care less. I want to see like new and up and comers and interesting guys get in the ring. Like, Jason Knight's still pretty badass, but Charles Bennet, that's just a name that he's fighting up against right now. That's it, right? It's just Jason Knight gets to fight Crazy Horse, and this is exactly the result that I expected. But hey, what are you going to do? I'm not that much of a pessimist about MMA sometimes, but it's an entertainment sport. What are we supposed to expect? This is what a lot of us like watching. But even the way he just gave up his back there was just like, what the fuck are you doing, buddy? Like, he doesn't really care. Point being, like, he does this really weird diving right hand. Like, where was it even going? Leave a comment what you think he was trying to do with that punch. Was that actually an attempted punch? Like, was he trying to punch him in the body, you think? And he's so off balance and way out of whack. He's going for, I don't know. He's going to pick up his leg from behind and turn him over, but all that does is give up the back. And again, immediately what he does is he just turns his back to him and he's like, yeah, sure, hop on. Come for a ride. And he goes for the just stand up strategy. So he goes to stand up. Jason Knight actually has an interesting sort of control on the back here. Grapevining his legs like that around Charles's far side leg. Sort of an interesting way to stay clung to the back, but it really worked. It pulled him back on. I don't know. I've never seen that before. Or at least that adjustment when you're getting shaken off the top to intertwine both of your legs like that on one side. It's like a modified body triangle, I guess you could say. But he's tying himself up around the head and he's trying to crawl his way back onto Bennett's back, which is, it's going to be a lot harder for Bennet to shake him off because they're not sweaty at all. They haven't really been fighting for more than, a minute and a half. So, he's going to be pretty stuck on. If this was later in the fight, it might have been a lot easier when Jason was a little bit more tired and sweaty. He might be able to just shake him off. But if you get this position this early in the fight, you're going to hold on for dear fucking life, and you're not going to go. Especially with that interesting foot configuration that he has around his leg. I don't know, that's sort of new for me. Maybe I've just never watched this position that much in slow motion. Maybe a lot of guys are doing it, but when you cut it back and you start seeing it, like it's a beautiful adjustment for jiu-jitsu, right? He basically already has the lock. He doesn't need to change anything about that far side hip. He doesn't give up any space, and then continues to, crank his legs around that waist, right? The full-on body triangle. He's going to try to pull out one of those base arms, right? One of the arms that Bennet is basing himself on, just so he can turn them, throw a couple shots, force him to protect himself, make it a little bit easier to pull him down. But let's watch how he, so Bennet just tries to do a sit out, hopefully, being able to turn back into Jason, but with a full-on body lock, it's just not going to work. And it's really, really hard to break a body lock like that when you're facing down. You want the guy on your back to really be have his back on the mat. So if Bennet was to turn him over and sort of just start fighting off of his back, be able to use his hands, be able to use his legs, because he's just not going to shake him off from this position after the lock's already on. It's not going to happen. There's no chance. He needs to roll him to one side, and a really simple way to actually break this lock open, which I don't think a lot of people know about, but the lock side you want in the air. So you want, that hip right there, his left hip, to be on the mat, and then he can use his leg to actually hook around the leg that is across his belly. So you almost like reach your foot around, hook over top of the lock, and you can pull the lock open that way. But it's never going to work from this position. And it's funny, I don't see a lot of guys actually attempt to do that. And it's a really simple way to break it open. Easier said than done, but the concept itself is pretty straightforward. And he's just cranking on the head here. All right, a lot of leverage in that choke. Just crushing into the jaw, crushing into the neck. Yeah, you can see his eyeballs are about to pop out of his head. This is kind of exactly what I expected out of the fight. Like, bare knuckle in general is kind of fun to watch, and what I think is interesting about it is a lot of the submissions without the gloves are easier and some are a lot harder. So I feel like to escape out of an arm bar is going to be harder when you have MMA gloves on, but it's going to be harder to actually get into the arm bar without the gloves on. So it's sort of like an interesting, addition to bare knuckle MMA. Like, even putting these chokes on, it's easier to sneak a choke underneath somebody's chin when you're doing bare knuckle MMA, but at the same time, it's probably easier to defend when you're in actual MMA. So, like, I feel like the jiu-jitsu in bare knuckle MMA, point being, should be more interesting. All right, you get a couple no-gi guys that are willing to do this shit, and it can be pretty fun. Yeah, look at him get choked. Sweet! Alright, well, that's that fight. I'm not going to give it a ranking or anything like that, but again, these sort of like, just exciting fights, these super fights that, a lot of people look forward to, they don't really tickle my fancy that much. I like finding those underground fights and fighters that people haven't heard of before and try to show them off a little bit. But hey, kudos to Jason Knight for getting this win. Good job, boys.